Today we've got a man who's been to every corner of the Scottish football scene, every nook and cranny this country has to offer, and he's found home at a new club, one he didn't actually play for as a player. Pat Scullion, thanks for joining us. As we just said there, nice and bright and early, 9:30 on a Monday morning, can't beat it. But I've got to say, when I was looking up on you, I noticed you were pulling a wee Sean Connery. Patrick is not your first name. I was quite shocked by that. What's the script behind that?
It was just my mum and my dad had named me and then decided a couple of weeks later they wanted to change the name, but I'd already read. So that was it. And I've only ever been known as Patrick or Pat.
Huh? Fair enough. Well, you said over the phone there last week that getting you after a win would have been the perfect thing to do. You've managed to accomplish that again. It's 3 wins on the bounce now for the Shire. But you know, from a neutral perspective, for somebody that maybe doesn't follow the Lowland League, you're looking at a lower half finish in the league. And ultimately, when I was doing the reading up, when I was reading what you were saying in the papers, the club did require a big rebuild. So as we come up as well to your first anniversary at the club, how much progress would you say then solely within the time that you've been at the club that you've made so far?
Well, I think others will probably judge that more than I will, but I'll be pleased with where we've got to on the second half of the season. I think the first half of the season, there was a bit of a transition in terms of getting a lot of new players in. When I took over from Sandy Clark in middle of April last year, there was I think there didn't have any players signed for the coming season, so I was trying to convince the ones that I wanted to keep, that they wanted to stay. I didn't manage to keep everyone that I'd like to have kept from that group of players. And then you've got to add in new ones. And I hadn't been coaching at the Lowland League level, so I'd watched a few games at Lowland League level. So I was just trying to kind of find my feet, myself, my assistant manager and the coaching staff over the kind of first few games of the season. And then as we kind of progressed, we've managed to recruit. Some boys left us, unfortunately, but then we managed to recruit a few bodies in, and that's helped us. So we're pleased with our second half of the season performance. We're not probably pleased in our overall league position at the moment, but we're hoping that will improve as months come.
Yeah, you went into the job in April then, so you've seen out the last few games and you'd said that you were already really looking forward to the next season and that was your focus. I compare that a wee bit to, I mind when Brendan Rodgers had left Celtic, and then I think it was the BT Sports Score thing that they did on a Saturday. It was funny because you had the 2 Celtic men on one end of the sofa, then you had the 2 English boys on the other. But one of the alright justifications, I can't mind for the life of me who it was, maybe Julian Lescott or somebody, he had said about though how good it was that Rodgers has got to go in when there was nothing to play for in February because Leicester were sitting 12th or something. And that just gave him a wee bit of a head start. He'd go on to finish 5th, I'm sure, the year later, and they'd go into Europe for the next couple. How important would you say then was just getting in a wee bit earlier and getting a wee feel for the club and the league really as well?
Yeah, I think that was probably one thing that did help. I went in on my own. My assistant manager was with another club at the time, and he was kind of finishing the end of the season there, so I was going to go in and just look at it myself. But we had 3 tough games, if I remember. It was Hearts B, Celtic B, and then Rangers B. So that was the 3 league games. So there were 3 tough games, which again was a positive because I was able to see the boys not playing tough opposition and see what they were like. The ones that I was kind of keen to keep. And then it was good just to kind of get in there before pre-season and have a little break, and then give an opportunity to try and go and sign some players during the close season. So yeah, I think that was helpful. And then obviously we didn't get off to the as I say, the first half of the season wasn't the best of points return, but I felt that we were competitive in each game and we got a clear way of playing or a style of play, and it was just kind of continuing with the similar messages. The consistency of the messages and hoping that boys would develop and improve, and then obviously all of that comes down to getting a couple of better players in to help as well, and that's what we've done over the Christmas period. And thankfully we've got, I think, 14 in the squad signed for next season, so we're hoping that having a nucleus of a squad and then adding a couple more players into that will help us for next season.
Yeah, we'll jump straight into the section I love to ask everybody, because you were saying you were listening to the one there I did with Darren Young recently, because you two knew each other at Dunfermline. but I just like to go a wee chronological order throughout your career. So take us right back to the start, where you're from, your football upbringing, and ultimately, and no pun intended here, what led you up to your opportunity that most people up and down the country would be green with envy for.
Yeah, well, from Dunfermline. Lived there all my days. I played kind of local boys club football, and then I went across into Edinburgh and played with Hutchie Vale. That was quite good. That was in Edinburgh, so that was like going to the big smoke from being just a kind of wee guy from Dunfermline. From there, I went into Celtic. Went a couple of years full time there. A couple of years, then it was Dunfermline for a period of time, and then I went part time at Cowdenbeath. I was there for a few years. Then the journey really started where I got loads of clubs, but I went to Alloa, Steny, Clyde, back to Cowden, back to Alloa, down to Berwick, and then finished up in Edinburgh, and then finished up at Cowdenbeath in 2019, I think it was. And then from there, it was really just kind of getting involved, and I've been doing some coaching since, and went into the East of Scotland Premier League with Inverkeith and Hillfield Swifts as a kind of player coach, and then laterally as manager, and then the opportunity came up last year. It was through a contact that one of my former managers had, kept in touch with, and he'd mentioned it was an opportunity still on, and I think he'd said you should apply. So I just down a CV, applied, got an interview, and thankfully was given the opportunity. So that takes us probably up to today. So about 20 odd years within a few minutes there.
I thought it was quite impressive you were able to name them all off there in order. But I'm curious then about, because it's Celtic, I'm a Celtic man myself. I'm sure a good number of the people listening to this have maybe got some affiliation to them. What sort of players were coming up through at Celtic with you that we all know, and how would you compare it from the youth setup back then, because you were like under 17s and under 20s, were you not? And you've got experience of Celtic B yourself and the Lowland League. How would you compare the overall youth setup as well as that now?
I'm not too sure, to be honest, how it would compare to now. I can only give you what my experience was. I was just a kid at school. You'd go in on a Monday to Celtic Park. You used to have to do your homework, I think, if I remember rightly, with John Cushley. And then you would go and do kind of fast feet, kind of gym work type thing up in one of the stands in the mainly I think it was the North Stand. And on a Wednesday we were down at Hampton Palace, and that was the same on a Friday night, and you'd have a game on a Sunday. And it was just that was basically that for 4 or 5 years when you were at school. It was really good, it was enjoyable, and then you got the opportunity to go full time. Because I was living in Dunfermline, I moved into Diggs with my friend who I played with at Boys Club, Nicky Riley. So we lived in Diggs together. Nicky went on and played with Hamilton and Dundee, and then laterally played with Peterhead. I obviously played against when he was at Peterhead. Some of the players that were around at that time, ones that would probably, Aid McGeady, he went through, he made his debut very early, I think 18 or something. Charlie Mulgrew, but he went away and came back, became a Celtic player, and then Michael Gardine, he did really well at Ross County. Craig Reid, trying to think who else. Mine's gone blank. Rocco Quinn, and then there was other lads as well that kind of played at maybe low level. And then there was boys below and above, like Simon Ferry, Michael McGunchy, Charlie Grant, Jason Marr. And then older was like, I think David Marshall, Paul Watson, Craig B. So yeah, Ross Wallace. There was loads of players. During your career, you'd bump into these lads now and again. But obviously wasn't to be for me there, and then moved on, went to Dunfermline, made my debut against Hibs, and then that didn't work. So then you go down a level again, part time, and then I was kind of happy enough once I got to that level, and then I went to university and started studying, realised that probably wasn't going to make a career out of full time football, so go make a career out of part time football. And I realised that fairly early on, and it's helped me probably in my day job now, where I've managed to get to.
Aye. Was it Was it Jimmy Calderwood or Davy Hay that signed you at Dunfermline?
It was Davy Hay signed me at Dunfermline. Jimmy Calderwood and Jimmy Nicholl had just left the back. I think I just went in to train with them towards the end of the season, just as they were finishing up, and then they went to Aberdeen. Jimmy Calderwood just sort of round the corner from me, actually, in my street. And then I had Jimmy Nicholl later on at Cowdenbeath. He was manager at Cowdenbeath later on, but it was Davy Hay, and he was good. I liked him. It was the first manager to give me my opportunity to play first team football, or gave me my debut rather. It only happened a couple of times, and he probably realised I wasn't going to quite cut it around me, but such is life. But he was good. I liked him. He was a nice guy. Quite a quiet manager. First time I always had been around a first team manager, because when you're a young boy at Celtic, albeit you'd help with the kit or you'd be on a rota to do the kit, you weren't really ever involved with the first team. You were maybe hearing what the manager was like through, boys that went up and trained with the first team or boys that played in the first team, but you didn't really know. So that was the first opportunity or experience of a first team manager. He was good. And then obviously Davy. You had Billy Kirkwood and Paul Hegarty, who was his assistants, and they were firm but fair.
Yeah, no, it's quite funny now. You're the third Dunfermline former player to come on this. I mean, I must be a magnet to Dunfermline men. I don't know if I'd rather I was a magnet in other aspects of life. But listen, I'll take what I can get. It's funny as well because you're all kind of in the same. Because I had Stuart Petrie on at Montrose, and he probably just left maybe just before you came in. And then of course Darren Young as well. I'm quite curious about Davy Hay though. Obviously a very well-known guy in Scottish football, one of the quality street gang under Jock Stein, went down, certainly asserted himself at Chelsea as well. So even you've got a manager who has a reputation as a player, or he's got a bit of an aura about him, and I spoke to David Proctor about this as well on my first interview, because he had Terry Butcher at Inverness, he was the guy that let him go. Does that have a wee bit more of an effect on you? Does it wear off after a wee while, especially since you were a young player at the time?
Oh, I was I grew up a Celtic fan, still I'm a Celtic fan. My grandparents and my dad and my mum were all Celtic. So when I was a kid, I'd watch old videos that had been recorded or whatever. So I knew who Davy. I knew obviously he's a good bit older than I am, but I knew all about him. I knew exactly who he was, and came through with Danny McGrain, Kenny Dalglish, George Connolly. I knew all of that. But yeah, he was just such a nice guy. I mean, don't get me wrong, you could tell he carried himself well and all that kind of stuff. But he was just an approachable, for being a young player. He didn't. I didn't feel scared. When you're a young boy at Celtic, Martin O'Neill would maybe walk past you in the corridor and he'd be like, "Oh, is he going to say hello?" And he would just kind of keep walking. But
he's up type thing there. So.
Fairly common, I think. He just, if he was on his way to do something and didn't say hello. Whereas Davy Hay wouldn't walk past you without saying hello and how are you getting on. That was my memory or my recollection. He's just a nice guy. I mean, I don't think I've ever bumped into him since, to be honest. But he was good. I liked him. I mean, it was not a long period of time that I worked. And to be fair, I was still kind of in that cross between reserves and training with the first team. So I wasn't probably one of his number one priorities. He had 3 points on a Saturday, but he certainly had time for younger players. That was my impression of him.
Yeah, well, Dunfermline, you say that you were a Celtic man, but I'm sure being from Dunfermline, you still had a wee bit of an affinity to them because they were your hometown team. Just on a personal level as well, leaving as a young player, and it was the club that gave you a chance after you weren't going to progress at Celtic. Was it a wee bit of a tough one to take? Did it leave you a wee bit uncertain, maybe? Yeah,
I think I've mentioned it to friends whatever before. It was you've been playing all your life. You just you want to be a full-time football player. That's what you get the opportunity to do that. That's then taken away from you, or because you're not being offered a new contract. Davy had actually just left a couple of games before the end of the season. Jim Leishman came in and worked with Craig Robertson, who'd kind of taken the reserves or whatever. And, deemed that wasn't good enough, which fair enough. That was their opinion, and probably been proven right because I didn't then play at that level again. So it was it was upsetting. It was what am I going to do? That was also your job. So it's like, well, I left school at 16. What am I going to do now? So I had reasonable exam results, and I was felt certain level of, and also I didn't really know what I wanted to do, and I ended up going to kind of college and university. I had to go through that route because I didn't have hires to get into university straight away. So it was a bit of a reset, and then good people around, people that had helped coach me throughout. Pat Gardner, who had also played at Dunfermline in the cup winning side in 1968, I think it was. He had been one of my coaches at Celtic, so he was helpful in terms of trying to pick me back up. And then Jim McAnally, who'd been at Celtic, he invited me in to do some pre-season training with the club that he was at. So that again gave me something to get fit for. And then you get a move, and then you're away again, and you're back playing, and you're better for the experience because it makes you more resilient, more mentally tough, or whatever they want to call it. But you always get setbacks in football. So that always happens. You have more down days than up days.
Yeah, no, that was what the most recent guest, actually, Kyle Julius, who is the head coach of the Vancouver Bandits over in Canada, and their equivalent of the NBA, really. He spoke about 75% of basketball is shit, but you play for the other 25 where it's really good. I want to maybe just jump over Elgin. It was a short spell, and we've got a fair amount of teams to cover. I'm sure you've got all the happy memories from Elgin. That's not a slur on them whatsoever. But I do want to ask about Cowdenbeath, because I want to know what they were doing to you. I mean, you went back twice after you left the first time. I need to know how they were charming you over there at the Blue Brazil. But in all reality, I want to ask about the familiarity aspect of a football club, because it's very easy to view it as 11 players and a pitch, manager and structure, and it's a game of football. But ultimately, we're talking about working environments, different organisations. Did you feel then that sense of you knew what you were up to with Cowdenbeath, so that was why you went back, you felt familiar, you felt at home at the club, and you knew you had a place?
Yeah, I think, the first time I signed was they were the guy at Elgin who put a bit of money in or something had fallen out of the board or whatever, so they kind of let they let me leave. Plus at that time there was quite a lot of young lads. That Ian Vigers was there. He obviously went and played at Motherwell. Boy McKenzie, who's the goalkeeper at Cove just now. Gary Wood, who played at Ross County and Inverness. So they were kind of younger. They were maybe a year or two younger than me. So there was a decent core of young players. The idea, I think, what sold to me was, we'll get some young lads in and, try and work our way up the league, and hopefully, so we're kind of, it was a bit of a hybrid of part-time and full-time. And I obviously had a job and everything, so I was happy to go up there. So we stayed up there. That then all fell apart, and then mixed with Pat Line, phoned me out of the blue in Cowdenbeath. I think they were third in the league at the time. I remember we were 13 points behind Steny and Berwick for going for the league, and John Coughlin wanted to sign me at Berwick, and I thought, maybe sign there because there's a chance to win the league. But Mixu was brilliant, and again there was quite a few younger lads that I kind of sort of knew, and I thought, this feels a bit more. And it was 2 minutes from my house as well at Cowdenbeath. So I ended up just signing there, and we had a bit of success, won the league, and then we started off the next again season really well. We signed a lot of kind of good, decent young players like Pat Clark, Liam Buchanan, Dougie Hill, Marcus Patlinen, Margaro Gomez. So we had quite a decent set of young players, and then the experienced players were really good. So it was just a good place to play. And then Mixu left, stayed for another little while, and then we got relegated. And I wanted to still stay in that same league. It would have been equivalent to League One now. And then I had an opportunity to go to Alloa. So again, it wasn't travel-wise, it was fine in terms of going to uni or whatever. So signed there. And then why did I go back? Because Jim Duffy left Clyde and Barry Ferris came in, and we trained. We moved training to the Palace of Arts at Ibrox, and I was working in the city of Edinburgh. It was nigh on impossible to get there for the time that we were to be training. And I had been in training with Cowdenbeath because they were kind of hybrid, full-time, part-time, and I was on gardening leave for my job for 3 months. It was brilliant. And I went in and just trained with the boys at Cowdenbeath through the day, and obviously I knew Jimmy Nicholl a little bit. Jim Duffy had mentioned him, he invited me in, and then when Barry Fergus came in and said that, I just phoned Jimmy Nicholl and said, look, I can't get to training. Would you sign me? He said, aye, that's fine. Come in. Try and get started. And at that time, it was a championship. Rangers were in it, Hearts were in it, Hibs were in it. It was good. And obviously, I've known to the club because I'd been there before. I knew quite a few of the boys because quite a few of them had been kind of younger players when I was there, and they were now first team players, or some of them were former teammates. So it was good. I enjoyed it. And fortunately, I got injured at Christmas time. I was out for about 7 months with my knee, which was a bit annoying, but part of football, innit? And then the last time I went back was because I can't quite remember. My daughter had been born, and I had been down at Berwick, and it was a short stint in Edinburgh, and I wasn't wanting to travel again, so it was on my doorstep. Gary Bowman was the manager, so I just went back, and by that time I was 33, 34 or something like that. Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
I enjoyed Cowdenbeath. It was good. I enjoyed it. It's quite a small club, obviously, but very passionate. The people that do go and support them, loads of good volunteers. Just and then I'd actually been a ball boy and a mascot at Cowdenbeath because my uncle played with them in 1995 or something like that. So I've always had a wee bit of relation with Cowdenbeath just because of that.
Yeah, I'm quite well versed in my Fife football geography. My dad's a Glenrothes man, and he's an East Fife man. It was good. He was saying he's seen a couple of the family members getting up at Bayview now. I think they all kind of stopped going when the old Bayview get knocked down. But he says I think Dick Campbell's had that kind of magnetic pull really back into the club. You spoke about Jim Duffy there. He was your manager at Clyde, was he not, as well?
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
Was he a big part as why? Well, actually, when I did the maths here, Clyde was the team you spent the most time with in one single spell, actually. So did he have an impact on that?
Absolutely, yeah. He was the reason I signed. He was the reason that each season I would re-sign. Obviously, Clyde played at Broadwood at the time. I liked playing at Broadwood. I really liked it at Clyde. It was good. But he was a big part of. He's probably a big part of why I'm doing coaching now. Because I thought I really liked the way he just simplified things, both tactically and whatever, and some of the technical things we would do. Just a really good way of making things simple, simple messages, and I really liked how he was brutally honest, but you never left the room thinking, what does he think about me? It was good. Sometimes that honesty was not often a pat around the back or a well done, and then often, or more often than not, it was you left thinking, wow, I need to buck up my ideas or he'll get rid of me. But again, I would rather that type of approach where somebody tells you how it is rather than you're left kind of second guessing what they think of you. So I really like working under him. I really liked the club for the kit men, kit women. The director that helped around the place. We were well looked after in terms of going to away games. If you needed kit, there was always bundles of kit and things, which from boys that listen to part-time people will realise how hard it is sometimes to get a training top off a kit man. All the wee things, it was good. I really enjoyed it there. And then, as I say, we trained, but it was fine for me to get to. And then when Barry Fergus came in, training moved to Palace Arts, and that became more difficult because of my day job, and obviously that's what pays my bills. So I needed to kind of rethink that at that time.
Yeah, well, it's not the first time you've spoken then about a positive experience with a manager. You said Davy Hay was just a really good guy and he always had time for you. How many things from your previous managers as a player do you think you've now taken into your own life as a manager and how you set things up and your whole process and your way with the players?
There's probably one or two things naturally that rub off. I think that happens in your kind of just general life. You'll maybe meet somebody and you think, they made the impression, and you think, oh, maybe try that. I get it myself. But what I've tried to do is be myself. But what the players that probably have worked with me or will work with me will, I would hope and I would think they would say, well, he's honest. They might not like they might not like that brutal honesty at times, but at least they're not left in wondering what I'm thinking. So that's maybe from stuff that I maybe took from Jim Duffy. But likewise, it's much easier. I much prefer patting people on the back and saying well done. But there has to be a balance. You can't just go about handing it like sweeties, because that again loses its effect. I worked under John Coughlin at Berwick, who's a friend of mine as well. But I really liked the way he organised things. He left no stone unturned. But his team talks, and I've said this to him before, they took too long. They lasted too long. So there's things where I love his organisation, and his preparation, his dedication for what he was doing was probably second to none. But the players, in my view, only need a couple of minutes of information. We can give that Tuesday, Thursday. So there's things where you take, John's organisation and dedication, because I see it more as part of his kind of coaching staff, that kind of thing, that work ethic, and then some of the honesty from. But you just try and be yourself. To be honest, I don't know. You can't pretend to be somebody else, because you'll get found out eventually. So just be yourself, really, and it'll either work for me or it won't work for me. And that's the way I approach everything in life, really.
Yeah, John Coughlin sounds like that would be me as a manager. Then I'd have your sort of Gettysburg addresses and all that in the dressing room if I was in charge of a team. So probably good that I've decided to put a mic in front of me as opposed to getting my coaching badges. I'm only 18 though, I've got plenty of time. Your second Cowdenbeath and Alloa spell, it was so nice. You had to do it twice. It was almost like a wee copy and paste job for you there. We have spoken about both of them there, so I want to ask about your emergency loan to Berwick, because I don't know if it's just this big team snobbery, but I don't see a lot of emergency loans. The only thing I can mind is, I think Barcelona did it a couple of years ago. They somehow get the La Liga to let them do it with Martin Braithwaite from Leganes, I think it was, and I thought, Barcelona's 14-year-old kids are better than what Leganes have got, so it was ridiculous. But what were the whole circumstances with that? Because that is quite a rare thing, I'm sure, and I've always thought, is there a bit of personal input into that because you're outside of the transfer window ultimately?
Yeah, I think, really the technicalities of emergency loan, it's just from my perspective. I was at Alloa, I went back for a second time, loved first and even the second time, although the second time I sat on the bench, didn't play. I watched Jason Marr play really well, and I watched Andy Graham play really well for that period of time that I was there, and it was hard to get in. And to be fair, I think we won the first 12 games in a row. And in fact, the first game we lost all season was we played Celtic at Celtic Park, where I didn't play, I was on the bench. We got beat 2-1. Celtic scored late on. It was a game where Craig Gordon came out and wiped Greg Spence out in the middle.
Yes, he never gets sent off for that, did he?
I haven't never sent off Craig Gordon anyway. But so,
I mind that one.
To be fair, the two boys that were playing in front were doing really well. And sometimes you play in to try to be a good teammate and wait for your opportunity. It didn't really come. And it got to the stage where I was like, I just need to play football. I can't keep training. I don't feel like a football player if I'm not playing. So I knew John, phoned John and said, do you need any players? Because I can't keep sitting on the bench here. He said, I'd like you to come. And then I went for what would have been, whatever that emergency loan, however the technicalities of that worked. So Jim Goodwin was the manager, just said to Jim, do you mind if I go? And he said, no bother, we'll put you on loan. And then we'll see what January brings. And I went there with a really good dressing room, some brilliant characters down there. Kevin McKinley, Jordan Sheeran, Stevie Notman, Kev McKinley, I think I've said maybe, Gary Phillips. So we had a really good character. It was like a comedy club. So it was enjoyable going down to training. Just enjoyed it. So I ended up just staying there, and I was there, and I joined John's coaching staff as well towards the end of the season. So I was helping with some of the stuff that we did in pre-season, which was good, and that got me the real first taste of coaching in the men's football, and I quite enjoyed that.
Yeah, I want to actually improv there and ask about Jim Goodwin, because I just can't help but think he's had such an interesting managerial career. Alloa to his club at St Mirren, he didn't actually get them into the top six or anything. Then he landed Aberdeen, and then about a year later he was gone. Now he's at Dundee United with, let's be honest, it's probably a mid-table Premiership side, and he still can't seem to get the daylight. I don't think anybody wants to win the Scottish Championship, because whenever somebody drops off, Wraith or Dundee United don't take advantage yet. I just want to ask about him. how was he, especially in the earlier days of his management?
Yeah, I think. Well, Jack Ross was the manager when I first went in, and Goody, he was a player. He was still doing well as a player. I don't know what age he'd have been, but still really fit. Contributed a lot on the pitch. And then Jack left just after that Celtic game, actually. And then Goody took over. He had straight away he probably had it in one way quite an easy transition because he was he'd been part of the dressing room, which can be quite difficult, but it was a really good dressing room in terms of the boys. Like it was really good lads in there. All even though it was part-time football, they were all pretty, professional lads. There's no kind of time wasters, nobody there taking the piss type thing. So that would have been quite an easy transition because he knows he can trust the players, but then he is coming from a player to be the manager. So rather than being in the dressing room having a laugh with the lads, he's kind of having to try and distance himself a little bit. But I thought he was good. I liked him. Again, he was fairly honest. He had a team that was doing quite well, so I only worked with him for a very short period of time, so I went to Berwick. But from what I did see, he didn't change too much from what Jack was doing. He had obviously Lee Sharp, who had been a teammate of mine at Clyde. He was assistant under Jack Ross. Goody kept him on, and he's obviously still at United with Goody now. So I don't know how he's done elsewhere in terms of see the results, but I don't know what it's like behind the scenes. But I can only comment from what I've seen. I thought it was good. I liked him. But again, you're talking it's a short period of time. Because he just kind of kept things kind of running as they were. So yeah, I thought he was good.
Yeah, well, Jack Ross himself did decline to come on the show, and on the basis he's not a big media fan. But if he's watching, we've saved a seat for you, Jack. What are we going here? Edinburgh City as well was one of the clubs that you played for. The way I thingy this out was up until your second Cowdenbeath spell, and then that's your kind of halfway point. I'm quite curious about Edinburgh City. I don't know if it's just because I quite like seeing interesting clubs like Edinburgh City and Queen's Park who are in these big markets, yet are operating way under the budgets of everybody else. You were at the club for a brief time. You also didn't have a club for about a month, was it, before you went there? Was that a wee bit of an uncertain time, or did you know you were going to end up at Edinburgh? Or
no, I don't know why. I don't know what. But I left Berwick and signed for Edinburgh, whatever, the 31st of January or whatever.
okay.
As soon as you could sign because my first game was against Berwick on the New Year's, the New Year's Day fixture, and we won 3-0. But reason really for leaving, my daughter was born in the September, and we trained. So I was basically leaving the house at whatever time for work, and then going to training, and then train miles away. By the time I got home, I spent the whole day, Tuesday, Thursday, not seeing my daughter, and that was obviously my wife being at home all day. It's a long day because I took a stint in parental leave, when my wife went back to work, and I was looking after my daughter at that time, and it's a long day to be sitting at home with a child. So it wasn't really fair on my wife. So I kind of spoke to Robbie Horn and said, look, I can't keep doing this. And then he was good enough to kind of let me go because he obviously maybe be in that position himself. And I spoke to Craig Beattie, who was Edinburgh, and he said, look, I'll speak to the manager and see if he'll sign you. And they did. And it was just a short term. It was never going to be kind of long term. I don't think it was always just going to be just come in because they were really struggling in the league. I think they were bottom of the league when I signed there. And we managed to, I think they had 7 points when I signed. And we ended up, obviously I wasn't the only sign, they made a few other signs. But I think we ended up with 28 points or something like that over the second season. So we did all right second half of the season. And then I left then, just there, and then went back to Cowdenbeath.
Yeah, Robbie Horn actually quickly, he's just been punted out of Bonnyrigg, is he not, as well, after a good number of years at the club as well. Were you shocked by that?
Well, I was shocked because he did a really good job, didn't he? They were in the kind of junior levels then with transition of the leagues from East of Scotland and Lowland League, and obviously taking them. And Bonnyrig's not one of the big glamour clubs that we've been in the leagues, if you like. So he's done a really good job. But sometimes he's probably been a victim of his own success because they're expecting him to be up and safe, mid-table safety, and I looked at the table. I think they've been pulled into a little bit by Clyde and Stranraer. So maybe the directors feel that change needed. But I was definitely very surprised considering how well he's done there over. Well, he was there before Berwick, so probably in association with them going back 7, 8, 9, 10 years, something like that.
It's crazy. Well, no, the Spartans I'm getting mixed up with. Because my kind of tagline for the Stuart Petrie one was that he was the second longest serving manager, only to Douglas Samuel at Spartans. So I think I just got them mixed up. Bonnyrig's near enough Edinburgh anyway. That's where that came from. I want to ask then actually quickly about Edinburgh City's situation at the time, because right now, I mean, they're in a bit of free fall. Nobody knows if they're even going to be here, this time next year. Did it definitely feel a lot more stable at that point, or was it, kind of papering over the cracks really in your short time there, obviously?
Well, I can only talk about when I was there. I thought it was all right. It was fine. I mean, the only thing is, what I would say is they didn't have many supporters. It wasn't like So I don't know what they would have had in terms of fans attending home or away games. But if you were playing like a Clyde at home or Steny or Annan or whatever, they would have had more supporters than Edinburgh would have had in the ground at a home or definitely an away game. But at a home game, they would have probably taken more. So there probably really isn't the size and scale for Edinburgh. That would be my opinion. But I don't know, that's only just on what I see from the outside. Whereas if I compare, you mentioned Spartans there, because Spartans have got the kids from whatever age, 3, 4, 5-year-old, that they go in and they've done a really kind of good bit of work around that kind of Spartans family. Obviously, Doogie's been there for about 10 years or something. So really good job there in terms of getting them out. So for me, like if you were comparing those two, it's like, well, Spartans have got that infrastructure, plus they've got Ainsley Park with a kind of couple of pitches, whereas Edinburgh at that time when I played there were using Ainsley Park, so they didn't really have their own home. So the people that were there enjoyed it. It was good, but am I surprised where they are now? Probably not. What do I say?
Yeah, they're pretty famous for Meadowbank these days because, I mean, they made the away fans all the way at the end of the athletics track. Like, I think it was all the Falkirk Ultras or whatever, and they were all literally right at the end of that bend, and just be like the equivalent of Hampden, really. And then I think they have moved it in. But your twilight years of your career, you did, you spent them in the Lowland League. You were also a player manager at Inverkeithing. Ultimately, where you are now, as you are a Lowland League manager, do you feel then that your last few stints in the lower leagues have helped you now as a manager?
Possibly. Well, certainly the stint in Inverkeithing definitely did. The bit where I kind of just a short period just after that with like some Lithgow or whatever, that was that just helped my kind of circumstances of as I was working. I was travelling all the time. I couldn't really play in the level at Cowdenbeath where I was before because you needed to be at training. So it was handy being at Lithgow because I didn't really need to make training, which wasn't really what I wanted to do, but that was the deal that I had with the manager, which was fine. And then Inverkeithing, because of COVID came around, that was really kind of post-COVID. I was kind of twiddling my thumbs and somebody phoned me and said, "Do you want to come in?" I said, "Oh, that's great." And that got me really started on my journey of kind of coaching and then, having the appetite for the management, sort of taste of it at Berwick. So that was good. Just it was a different level, different pitches, playing against different opposition. It was all of it was quite new to me. Some of the grounds I'd never been to, so that was quite good, quite fresh. And a lot of the learnings that I got from that time with being a player coach and as a manager has helped me from going into the Shire job.
Yeah, well, just down the road for Dunfermline, isn't it, as well? As just up next to North Queensferry, isn't it? I know I just said I'm quite clued up on my Fife geography. I did actually have to look up where Inverkeithing is. Like, I know all the places, but I need to, like, right, where's it closest to big town wise? But then I was like, oh, so just a wee right turn of the head when you're coming over the bridge, yeah. But you had said it wasn't the way that you wanted to leave Inverkeithing, but just maybe with background things you're going on at the club. Do you think there was anything that could have been dealt with a wee bit better upon your departure?
I probably should have left earlier, if I'm being
No.
honest. We played a game against John Potter's Kelty. It was John Potter's team, but it was Kelty's, like a mix of first team and 20s, which, just a bounce game. And there was something that happened that evening that I thought, you know what? And I was actually, John Coughlin was kind of there, and I explained to him kind of what had happened. And his advice to me was, sometimes you just got to kind of cut your ties before it's too late or whatever. Or I can't quite remember what he'd said, but basically, like, you should probably leave now. It was a summation of what he said. But because we'd been doing okay, and at that stage we'd been doing okay, and I put a lot of work into it, so to the coach staff, and we wanted to continue. And then about 4 to 5 weeks later, the inevitable happened, and actually that was the biggest regret. So if something occurred like that in the future, I wouldn't hang on, to continue. I would have been stronger at that point and just said, no, I've had enough. But really good, really, really good learning experience. The whole, from taking pre-season right through to the day we left, the whole experience was really, really good.
Yeah, did John Coughlin give you a big kind of Michael Collins type speech on leaving separation and all that?
But no, he was totally right, and I should have listened to him. But I was probably, thinking, oh, well, it'll be fine. But actually, he was completely right, and I should have listened to him and used that experience sooner rather than what I did.
Yeah, just what's it called? Like the Angel Gabriel in a Dream or something like that. They're appearing to you. I told you, son. I did actually like though how you spoke about you had a style of play, and you say you've got one now, and that was the way you wanted, and you maybe didn't quite have the players or the resources or the infrastructure to be able to do that at Inverkeithing. Is that a bit of a rarity though? Like, the lower down you go. I don't know if it's just because we perceive lower league football as just hoofball all the time or anything, but without giving away, your tactics. I don't want anybody doing their homework on this or anything, but can you give us a wee bit more of a rough insight into how you like to set your teams up then?
Well, I like, and I've said this to players when we're saying, I don't want to stand at the side of the pitch and watch my team punt the ball up the pitch. I go and play golf. Do you know what I mean? And just doing that. I don't want to stand at the side of the pitch and do that. Now that might sound like who the hell do you think you are, but I think if we train the way we want to play, we can encourage people to pass the ball. Now that being said, we played at Cowdenbeath at the weekend. The pitch wasn't easy for both teams. The wind was howling, so at that time you've got to kind of adapt a little bit more because you maybe invite pressure on or whatever. But generally speaking, I want my teams to play on the front foot. I want us to play forward. I want us to kind of use it, especially at home or at the Falkirk Stadium. It's a lovely surface, really big pitch. I want us to use the kind of size of the pitch. I want us to try and score goals. I don't want us to stop us score the opposition scoring goals. That's kind of how you would sum it up. But realistically, just to kind of get the boys to believe in themselves, believe that they can play. I mean, they all train, they all pass the ball in training. They play small-sided games. We play small possession, big possession, whatever kind of we do. Boys will take the ball and they'll handle it. So if we can try and get them to believe in themselves that they can do it in training and try to put it on the pitch, then we can get them to pass the ball on a Saturday, and players will enjoy passing the ball. And that's what I try and get us to do.
Yeah, we've got to say there, speaking about the Falkirk Stadium, what's his name? Rhys McCabe. He is some quarterback, by the way, and for a guy that instills such a possession-based style of football in the Championship as well, some of the balls he was pinging up in that pitch. Maybe it was just a big pitch helped him out. Maybe that was all he was wanting. But got to ask, coming into East Stirling, big club, big historic club that has underachieved and has fallen a wee bit. You were also coming in to replace Derek Urey, who a club legend as well. But you were also a young manager coming into a rebuild, which was how you yourself described it. So how did you know that then you were ready for a fairly big jump as well into that job?
Well, Derek had started the season, then Sandy came in partway Clark. So why I said it was a rebuild was because we had kind of no players signed, and I knew that people wanted to leave. Some of the, like Dean Watson went and moved to Bonnyrigg. He'd have been a player obviously I'd like to have kept, but he wasn't going to stay. Striker Naya, who'd kind of done well and has done well again this season in terms of goals return. And there was one or two others that I'd maybe like to have kept, but so I knew that they were going to be leaving. And then there was players that would have had to leave through either loan or whatever. And then there was maybe a couple in the middle where I was trying to convince them to stay. So that was why I said it was a bit of a rebuild, because we had no players kind of on board with 2 or 3 games to go. And as well, there was new directors had just come in not long before me, I think just kind of January to February time. So they were obviously looking to kind of try and restructure a couple of things, in terms of sponsorship, and they're really keen on this kind of making the club sustainable in the short run.
I was reading about that actually. That's interesting.
But that's why we've got to kind of rebuild and do it sustainably. So we can't spend money we don't have. Lots of clubs the same. We can't make commitments or promises to people, because we've got to try and make sure that this is a kind of long-term plan. So that I think your issue and how historic the club is. The club want to be here in another 100 years. So my job is to try and help the team, but also make sure that I'm representing the interests of the club as well when I'm speaking to players and doing all that kind of stuff. So that's why I say it was a bit of rebuild. To your second question around how do you know I was ready? I don't know if anybody knows they're ready in anything. Whether you make your first team debut as a 17, 18-year-old, or whatever it may be, you just get thrown in. You either sink or swim. And I was confident that I've been in football 20 odd years, and I know how to put training sessions on. I know how I want my team to play. You just got to try and convince the players to do that, and try and convince players that you're trying to sign to come in, and hopefully they come in and they can add value to you. So I don't know if I was ready or not, but I certainly gave it a go, and I'm really, really enjoying it. Like I said to you, there's been lots of times you drive home in the car and think, God Almighty, not again today. How did we lose that one? Or how are we going to win a game? But then it's the 3 points on a Saturday. That's what we're all striving for.
Yeah. Sounds like Doug wants to come on and make a wee cameo, doesn't it? I'll ask you your last personalised question, then we'll go on to the usual finale. And somebody started drilling outside my window. Brilliant. How easy have you felt then? You speak about the directors, you speak about the green initiative and the sustainability of the club. How have you been able to align that with, of course, I'm not saying you're disloyal to Stirling, but I'm sure you do have aspirations to go higher and to move on when the time's right, if that's acceptable at the time. So how have you been able to align then the club's goals, targets for long term or whatnot, and your own personal career ambitions in?
Yeah, well, I think it's a good question, but I think I'm really thankful to Stirling for taking a chance on me. That's first and foremost. I'm thankful for the support that again, they don't have a huge following to matches on a Saturday, but the fans that come up and speak to you, I'm really thankful for their support. Plus also the board support. When you look at our results, I know you have, but they're really tight at the start of the season in terms of losing the game by the odd goal or whatever. But the board could see the hard work that's been going in, the training, the organisation, the video analysis, some of the stuff we're doing with the sports science. They could see all the work that they're doing behind the scene. So we were confident that our processes behind the scene would hopefully start, turning the tide. Plus, I'd signed quite a few players from East of Scotland level who'd never played at Lowland League level, so that they were going to take time to settle in and adapt and adjust. Plus, then, the boys that were here last season had 3 managers in a year, so they needed some stability. So I'm really thankful for the board for even just kind of, continuing to support myself and the young kind of coaching staff that we've got. So my long-term ambition is really just to do as well as I can for East Stirling. And when I say that, I'm not saying that because I'm not interested in another job or whatever. It's just I'm really focused just on East Stirlingshire. My day job will probably provide limitations on what I can do in my management career anyway, potentially, unless those things change. Unless my job changes slightly, my day job. But at the moment, my main focus is to do as well as I can for East Stirling for as long as I can, and as long as they want me there, then I'll hopefully be there to try and make us better. That being said, if Celtic came in tomorrow and said, "Do you want to be the manager?" I might give up my day job and I might give up the job. But we've got to be realistic, do you know what I mean? You've got to be realistic with your ambitions.
Yeah, listen, I love to hear that though. Do you know, it's quite refreshing to hear that as much as results maybe haven't went your way, especially at the start of the season, and just the general lifespan of football managers these days, to hear that even though it might not have been all fine and dandy, that they do see the hard work and they do see what you're trying to do and building towards. We'll finish off the question I always love to finish on, and that is if this time next year on 25th of March 2025, I might be coming into I was going to say a playoff race, but that maybe doesn't quite exist in the Lowland League, unfortunately. We come back, we do a round 2, and I ask you your first question is, have you done a good job from the last time we spoke to now? So what would you class as a job well done then?
Well, if you look at our league position last season, when we finished last season, you look at our points tally, you look at our goals for, goals against, we've improved that this season by, I'm not quite sure the percentage points, but we've improved that. For me, as a minimum, we need to go again to improve that, and wherever that takes us. I've never been one for saying we should be getting in, winning the league top 3, top 4, top 5, top 6. We've got targets internally, but for me, as a very minimum, success will be to better the number of games we win, reduce the number of losses, reduce the draws and make those wins, and get more goals for, more goals again, more goals for and less goals against. That is where I want to get us, because, as I say, we're on a bit of a journey with the club, and we know for that sustainability piece, we're not going to be able to chuck more money at it. We have to make sure we build it internally. And if you look at we've got a stat from one of the directors Saturday, and that's including having a 38-year-old centre midfield player. He's young when we started. He's 20 years old and 2 months. So we've got a young team. My belief is that they will continue to get better as they get more games. They continue that growth and confidence. So I hope over this next period that those players develop, and myself, my coaching staff will be part of their development.
Yeah, 23 years and 8 months. I think that's what I've got written down in that book there. Don't worry, I do my homework sometimes. But, a very numbers based approach. I like that. Keep it simple. It should be easy enough then to see if you've hit your targets or not. But listen, Pat, I've really enjoyed this. I think it's been quite a refreshing chat almost, because you've talked a lot about real life, your day job, and balancing the family and travel, which has been something that I've quite enjoyed to hear about, because it's quite easy just to believe that footballers have got the glitz and the glam and that's all they do all day is kick a ball for 2 hours at training and then that's them sorted until Saturday. Nice to jump back into the Lowland League as well, starting to slowly conquest the league. That's 3 down, Mick Kennedy. I know you aired me on Twitter, but I won't take it personally. But thanks very much, mate. I really wish the club all the best. Well, I was going to say for the running. I think these will be sorted based off of the last 2 positions in the league anyway. So, but as I say every day, I will try my very best in the next year or so. To get down, I'll let you know if I'm coming as well. It's been brilliant. Thanks very much, mate.